Good morning. My name is Vincent Isom. I'm the director of the 21st Century Scholars Program here at IU Bloomington, and I'd like to welcome you this morning to our event. This event is hosted by 21st Century Scholars Office, Community and School Partnerships, and the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. So a little brief introduction about the 21st Century Scholars Program at IU Bloomington. We are here to support our students. We perform outreach like this to increase awareness of the 21st Century Scholars Program statewide. Also, we provide an opportunity for students to get a glimpse of what it is that the IUB 21st Century Scholars Program offers. We offer wraparound services all 4 years for students that attend Indiana University. In addition to having your state scholarship, the university offers a covenant. You'll hear about that covenant a little bit more. That covenant is in place to cover, as long as you qualify, some housing, board, and other expenses. So you will hear from the experts related to the covenant. We also provide advising to help you meet the roadmap to success, the 2020 plan from the Indiana Commission for Higher Education that is related to your career pursuits. So in addition to assisting you with your academic pursuits, we are here to assist you in navigating the career pursuits so that you are a competitive candidate upon graduation for the job that you like to seek. So with that said, I'll pass it on to Jim to talk about today.
Thank you, Vince. Great to see everybody in this morning. We appreciate you taking some time. We know there's a lot going on in the world, obviously, and it is a nice summer day, and we appreciate the focus on our academy and the key topics we will be discussing today. The essential elements of paying for college and then navigating the Scholar Track platform through the Indiana Commission of Higher Education. Just real quickly to touch on what we went through last week on the IU admissions piece of the academy. Just for those who were not able to join us, we did talk with Chanel Melwood, a senior admissions counselor in the IU Bloomington Office of Admissions, who looped us in on what it takes to get admitted to IU and what a lot of the scholars who are successfully admitted to Indiana University go through in their pre-college journey. That's specifically our office's goal, is to produce college-ready individuals through the Office of Community and School Partnerships. So we do that through a number of pre-college experiences, and this obviously is a great partnership we have with Vince's office to produce college-ready individuals. And what does that mean? Chanel went through many things that IU Bloomington has to offer, and I guess the key point that we hit on a few times was the process of holistic review, as Chanel and her office describes it. That is the idea that when you're a candidate for admission to IUB, we don't just see you as a number, as a standardized test score or a high school GPA. We look at the whole individual, right? So we talked about the many things you can do to make yourself a more attractive candidate from a holistic review perspective. Things like extracurricular activities, things like jobs and volunteering in your community, being active and so forth. And obviously a big piece of that starts with that essay that you're able to really describe yourself in your IU admissions essay and make yourself that candidate that we like to produce through community and school partnerships, and that candidate that we know you can be, that you can do your best work here at IUB. So we talked to several current students at IU Bloomington, and we have several of them on the line today who will provide perspective around the paying for college elements and the navigation of the Scholar Track platform through the 21st Century Scholarship. So we've got an exciting session on tap today. First, we will be hearing from the one and only Phil Schuman, the Executive Director of Financial Wellness and Education here at IU, and he's going to take us through an interactive game on the true cost of attendance for college and how you can be thinking a little more long term as you get into the financial aspects. We'll hear from Emily Arth, who's a Senior Associate Director in the Office of Scholarships here at IUB. Emily's terrific at discussing the various scholarship options, whether they be need-based or merit-based, and all things in between here at IU. And then we will close our session with Britney Collins from the Indiana Commission for Higher Education to talk specifically about the Scholar Track platform and how the commission, the requirements of maintaining your 21st century scholarship, and how the commission helps you track that and keep you on schedule in your development as a young scholar. So we are looking forward to getting started. With that, I think we will toss it directly to Phil Schuman to introduce himself and what the Money Smarts team is all about here at Indiana University. Again, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, Jim. I don't know how to take the one and only as an introduction, because I don't know, like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I am unique. I am my own person, but there are probably a lot of people that wish I wasn't who I was. So that's a good way to introduce myself. But it's great to be here with you all this morning, kind of talking about the financial aspect of college. And as Jim said, like, we're going to do something a little bit more interactive here. If you all have that sheet that was sent out as well, I don't know if that came along. If not, just write down numbers as we go through this. But I'm going to pull up my screen here and get this going for you all. So let me full screen this. You guys get to listen to me narrate myself as we go through it. I assume, wait, bring your shared window. Let's see if this works. Zoom share. It's probably not showing, right, Jim?
I see your screen. Money got you stressed. Call our team.
Oh, you can't see it. Okay. For some reason, it's saying sharing is paused. Bring your shared window to the front, but whatever. We're good.
I mean, if you need some other entertainment, you've got those guitars sitting right there. So
that is not entertainment for anybody. That is for when I'm on video mute and just mute in general. Yeah. And my dog is not in the room to complain about all the noise that I'm making. But anyway, so our office, the IU Money Smarts program, is a program that's been around since 2012, which is basically focused on your financial wellness. And what we're all about is basically help you overcome any financial barriers to completion. What we do know is that a lot of students, and you could ask any student this past semester especially, finances are an incredibly stressful thing to have to navigate while you're in school. And so we sort of exist to help you answer any questions you may have, and then again, help you overcome any sort of financial challenges you have in place. That's not to say that we're going to be able to provide you money in the process, but certainly we can help you figure out how to stretch the dollars you do have, or provide you in the direction to help you with some of the resources we do have on campus that will help you out as well. And then in addition, kind of help you figure out what your financial life is going to look like after you graduate. And that's sort of the purpose of the presentation you guys are all going to be seeing here today. But if you do have any questions, like, you're all part of the IU community right now, so feel free to reach out to us. You can go to moneysmarts.iu.edu, or you can just call us down at that phone number down at the bottom, 812-85-MONEY. We do one-on-one appointments. We do presentations, just anything you possibly want in terms of having your financial questions answered, we do. And so, with that said, what we're going to be doing today is something called the Money Smarts game. I'll get into that in just a few seconds, but I do want to give you a little bit of a background on who I am, what my life is like, just so you can kind of see where I'm coming from a financial perspective. So this is 1st through 6th grade Phil. I don't remember which photo is which, except for 4th grade Phil, which is the one in the top left corner, who decided that bangs were a good thing. No, not a good call at all. But I've been in this role since 2012. I'm one of the people that helped found the office because we were concerned about what was happening with student debt, and we still are concerned about it right now. And we realized that one of the things we could be doing is better educating students about finances to help them make informed decisions while they're in school. And then again, hopefully it leads to them making informed decisions after they graduate as well. I have my bachelor's in psychology from DePaul University back in 2006. I do have an MBA from IU in 2011. This will all become relevant in a second soon, I promise. I am married. I don't know if you could judge based on the photo of me. It's kind of amazing that somebody actually wants to deal with me this much. But this is my wife, Katie. That was us 10 years ago. This is us last year, I guess, in times when you could go dine out and everything was good, in the before time, as we say in our household. Her education background is that she got her bachelor's in music theater from Florida State in 2006. And then she did the traditional thing that most music theater majors do. She went to law school and graduated from that in 2011. So if anybody needs a singing lawyer, she's the person for you. We also have a daughter, Lucy. Here's Lucy. She is now almost 6 years old. In a couple weeks, she will remind you that obsessively that she is almost 6. And her education background is that she is about to be in first grade, which is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how time goes like that.
So what you're saying is that she hasn't declared a major yet, correct?
No, she has actually said that she wants to be an architect. Or I shouldn't say, she hasn't used the word architect. She said she wants to draw buildings.
Okay.
So and also in Bloomington, there is this crazy house that's going up right now. If you look at it online, it's $1.8 million. So all of us here could easily afford that. It's $1.8 million, and it looks like some futuristic nightmare that's just sort of in the middle of, just in the middle of town. Lucy passes that every single day and says she wants to live there. And that's also her inspiration for wanting to draw buildings.
Okay, well, it's got to start somewhere.
So if you come to
let you know, Phil, we are not seeing your slides advance on this end if you're scrolling.
Oh no, see?
So we can certainly share our screen from here and play it that way if you would like.
See, this is not good. Hold on one second. Here's what I'm going to do. Can you see the slide now?
Yeah, I've got how we got here.
Okay, so I'll back up real quick just so you all can see. You don't need to see my face. You don't need to see my wife's face. This is Lucy here.
Yep.
So that's Lucy. And she is in first grade. So the important thing before we dive into the game that I want to talk about is how we got here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this slide. I actually do presentations where I focus on this slide for about 10 to 15 minutes. But I think it's important for you to know this. This is the timeline of sort of my life and Katie's life. And like I said, Katie was a music theater undergrad, and then she did law school. And actually, she quit the law. Because she decided it was sucking the life out of her. And so she's now an academic advisor up at our Indianapolis campus, up at IUPUI. And so, that's what her progression was. My progression was I started in marketing. Then I did some social work because of the recession back in 2008. And here we are now. And I always show this slide to people, not to be like, hey, look how much money we're making. But I think that's an important thing to show, is that it takes time to get somewhere where you want to be, but also to show you that, what you think you're going to go to school for, it may not end up being like that down the road. And you need to be flexible. And what finances allow you to do is to be able to buy you that flexibility over the course of time. It allows you to figure out a way to be able to plan to say, I don't want to do this anymore. How can I make this transition? And so what I think is really important for you all to think about as you're going now, and even while you're, in school, is keep an open mind about, you may be a certain person right now, but you may be a different person down the road. And it also may take a while after you graduate for you to really be able to find yourself, find your progression, because you're not supposed to have everything figured out while you're in school or even afterwards. I'm 37 years old now, or almost 37 years old now. And I'm still not entirely sure of everything that I want to do with my life. So keep an open mind. And this is just to show you things change dramatically, and that there's no time than right after college graduation where things are more flexible. So with that, we're going to sort of dive into this game. And like I said, we're going to talk about financial wellness as part of this, which is to get you thinking beyond just pluses and minuses. There are going to be choices in this game where you're going to be asked to just think about what exactly are the things you need in life and the things you want in life, and whether or not you're going to be able to afford them. And then in general in life, we want you to be able to recognize your limits and know how to use the resources to overcome them. So this is where our office comes into play. It's where Emily comes into play with scholarships. It's where Vincent and Jim and all of them come into play with 21st Century Scholars. Utilize your resources while you're in school to figure out how you can overcome any sort of financial challenges you face while you're in school. And then also we want you to, these last two bullet points, understanding the effects of money on different areas of your life and understanding how various factors influence them. You are your own individual person. And in finance, they call it personal finance. And they call it that for a good reason, which is to say, like, who you are as a person is different than who somebody else is as a person. And what you need in order to have success in your life or feel fulfilled in your life is different than somebody else. So part of the college experience you're going to have as it relates to finances is for you making choices that reflect who you are as a person, and not necessarily for not necessarily for you trying to live somebody else's lifestyle. This is true in college. This is true post-college. Where people make the biggest mistakes in life, where people dig themselves deep into debt, is when they try and live a lifestyle that's reflective of somebody else's and not their own. The most successful people in the world as it relates to finances are those that stay within their means and work their ways up and don't try and jump to be somebody else too soon. So just keep that in mind as we're sort of playing this game and trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do here. So there we go. So the Money Smarts game. So here's how this is going to work. Basically, we've created this fictional world for you all, and you guys are going to choose your career based on what you think you're going to do post-graduation, and we're going to give you the salary that's associated with it. And then we're also going to let you choose your living style, your location, your transportation, all this kind of stuff. And ideally, behind all of this, you're going to be making some informed financial decisions in the process. And so what our expectations are is that obviously you recognize some of the consequences of your financial decisions. You discover the impact of money on accomplishing financial priorities. Because at the end of the day, what finances enable people to do is to accomplish goals, whether or not it's short term, like I'm hungry, I need food, I'm going to go buy food. That is accomplishing a short-term goal, or a long-term goal of I want to graduate from college with as little debt as possible. That is going to be a long-term goal you can try and accomplish as well. And then throughout all of this, we want you to sort of start thinking about, okay, if I need to cut back in certain places, or if I want to be spending a little bit more in certain places, you need to identify those areas that you can change and how you want to make that work. So we're going to get started. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is sort of the location. And in our world, and I apologize, normally when we do this in classroom, people are going back and forth with me on this, saying like, well, I do it this way right now. In our world, basically you are subject to our laws, our rules. So you can't change anything that's here. You just basically have to go off of what we have and what you think is going to be best for you in that situation. So in terms of location, you have two options. Moneyopolis, which is basically the city. I should also say we're not very creative when it comes to names, as you will see by our two names here. So Moneyopolis, this is basically the city. So if your goal, or if you just think you're going to want to live in a city post-graduation, whether or not that's Indianapolis or Chicago or DC or New York or San Francisco or anything along those lines, if your goal is to live in a city, this is probably going to be your option. The other option we have is Dollar Springs. Again, we're not very creative with the names. This is more of a suburban area, maybe a little bit more rural. You could say it's Bloomington. You could say it's a college town, something along those lines. It's just anything that's not considered like a huge metropolitan area. So those are the two options you're going to have, and I'll explain how those are going to come into play here pretty soon. Probably the most important thing we're going to be talking about is your career. And so the next slide that I'm going to pull up is going to show you the different types of careers we have in this game and the salary associated with them. So here you go. And so these are basically, the salaries that people can expect to have post-graduation, and then the student debt that's associated with it. So what I would encourage you all to do, and again, I don't know if you have the worksheet or not, but if you don't, just write these numbers down because they're going to come into play. But choose what career you think you're going to have and the salary associated with it, and write those down, and then write the student debt that goes along with it. A couple things that I'll point out here. In the case of like elementary school teachers, in the case of police officers, things like that, like they're not necessarily making a whole lot of money, certainly at the start of their careers. And they have quite a bit of student debt that goes along with it. And then you scroll down a little bit further and you see that like veterinarians and medical and family medical doctors, they almost have roughly the same amount of student debt, but notice how much less vets make per year than medical doctors. And this is just my normal spiel of saying, like, if you associate yourself with a veterinarian at any point in time, be incredibly nice to them, because you can obviously see that they are doing it for their love of animals, not because they want to be making a ton of money necessarily. So just something to think about there. So after you've picked your careers and you got your student debt associated with it, if you have the sheet, that's where that information goes. And then the other thing we note is that there are people that don't make a whole lot of money to start off with, and so therefore they have to have some sort of backup plan or some sort of side gig. And we're seeing this happen a lot right now as a result of the pandemic and all that's going on there. In some cases, if people are just, a barista or a wait staff or something like that, they're trying to find ways to pick up additional hours to make some additional funds at the moment. And so in our game, we're saying, all right, if you choose that field, you can make an additional $10,000 a year to make $35,000 total. Or if you happen to be a travel blogger, which really we just use that as a term for journalist. If you're a journalist and you want to make a little bit of extra money, you can do that as well. So if you decide that's something you want to do, you can write in that additional $10,000. The only thing that I would say is, and you have to make sure you're being honest with yourself, is that, are you a person that's willing to work an additional 20 hours a week? Do you want to be working 60 hours a week? If not, don't choose that extra part-time job. But if you're comfortable with that, then do it. Then, of course, we have to talk about that student debt piece that was up there. This is the fun part for everyone. And whether or not this is true, like if you're thinking to yourself, like, well, I'm probably not going to have some undergraduate student debt because of how things have played out, that's fantastic. You could also assume maybe you're going to have a little bit of student debt in grad school if you decide to go back then. And so you can sort of imagine that here as part of this. Regardless, if you end up having a student loan amounts of $30,000, what we're saying is upon graduation, you're going to have monthly payments of $320 per month that you're going to have to pay back over the course of the next 10 years. So it's $320 a month for 10 years. If you have $90,000 in student loan debt, it's $950, and then all the way up to $160 and $190,000, you can see how much you're going to have to be paying off every month for 10 years after graduation. And that monthly payment, depending on what option you chose earlier with your career, that's the number you need to write down here, is to know how much you're going to have to pay off on a monthly basis. And then you'll write those things. The duration is 10 years for everyone, at least at this point in the game. And then the monthly debt payment, what it is there as well. I will say this is really weird to do with no immediate feedback coming in, because normally I'm just having banter with everybody back and forth. And right now it just feels like I'm speaking into a void, which is just weird. But I heard
everything you say, buddy, and I'm not there face to face to kind of heckle you. So you've got that going for you.
Perfect. Jim, yeah, if you could just chime in and heckle me as we go through this, that would be fantastic, because then it would feel like I'm actually in a classroom. And,
right. One of our typical CSP events. Right.
There we go. So the next thing to talk about is that net income. So when we're talking about net income, this is basically what your paycheck is going to be based on what your salary is. So again, going back to, like, if you're a teacher making $40,000 a year, well, what does that look like? And here's your answer. So gross income, your gross income is whatever you make. Whatever you sign the dotted line for, that is what your gross income is. So again, going back to the teacher example, your gross income is $40,000. And then you're like, okay, if I take $40,000 divided by 12, that's $3,333 a month. And that is what my paycheck is going to be, right? No. You can see all the things below: the federal taxes, the state taxes, the retirement contribution we're saying you're going to be putting in, which is 10% a month. And then we're going to say you're going to have to buy some health insurance and dental insurance, and that's going to cost you $200 a month. And then you have to pay for Social Security and Medicare on top of that. And then you have student loans on top of that as well, that we're considering part of your gross versus net income. And you have to subtract that as well. And so that $3,333 a month you thought you were making as a teacher is actually only going to be $1,838.53. And that is the longest run-on sentence I could possibly do here. Which is, all of this is to say, holy cow, I'm not making as much money as I thought I was. And this is the reason why learning about finances is so important, is because if you are a person that makes that mistake that you're budgeting a life of $3,333 a month, which I'll tell you, I did that post-graduation, you will dig yourself into a deep financial hole. And the only way you could potentially find your way out of it is to convince your fiance to move in with you so that you can split the rent costs. Just speaking hypothetically here, but that's something you could potentially do. So all of this is to say, again, you may not be making as much money post-graduation as you thought you would. And the number of people that make this mistake is significant, and we don't want you to be that person. So what does this mean for you? This is what your monthly net income would look like based on what your job is. And so there's a couple things to note here. So obviously find the job that you were like, yeah, that's the one that I wanted. And write down what that annual gross income is. You probably did that earlier. And then write down what the monthly net income is. That's how much your paycheck is going to be every single month. And you'll also notice at the top that we have Moneyopolis and Dollar Springs listed. This is basically telling you this is where your job is located. It's not necessarily where you're living, but if you are an elementary education teacher, you are working in the suburbs, so to speak. You're not working in the city. If you are a police officer, you are working in the city. If you are a law associate, you are in the city. If you are doing journalism, you're in the city. Any of those fields, that is where you're going to be. So make sure you write down what that monthly net income is. And this is the awkward part where I pause and it's like, did I give you all enough time to write this stuff down? And hopefully I did, because I am moving on, because I know we've got lots of things going on here. So with living expenses, you write that there in that location, the career, the location up there. So now, sorry, I sort of glossed over this. With your living expenses, now you know where your job is. You have to ask yourself, do I still want to live in that same place? Or do I want to live in the other place and have to commute? And we'll talk about commuting here in just a little bit. And then you'll write your monthly net income in the top right. And then the next piece, again, going back to the idea that finances are basically exist to help us accomplish goals. And I talked about short-term and long-term. In this game, what we have to have you do as part of your financial challenge is to identify a goal that you want to try and accomplish. And so in this game, we have 5 goals from which you can choose. Again, all of these are post-graduation of college, so don't think like these are things that are going to be happening to you immediately, because you'll see some of them probably aren't relevant to you at this time. So these are your 5 goals. You could buy a house, and we're going to say buy a house 5 years after you graduate from college. You could start saving to start a family, which also is 5 years after college. We're going to say you could save for graduate school, which would be 2 years after you graduate from college. Saving for a vacation, which is just soon after you graduate from college, although I don't know of anybody that's taking vacations right now. Yep. And then, or you could do the sexiest thing that we say you could do in the financial biz, which is you could pay off your student loans in 5 years rather than 10 years, which you may be sitting there and be like, that is a stupid goal. That's my favorite one personally, just because, yeah, I don't like debt. So I like trying to get rid of it as fast as I possibly can. So that said, the 5 goals, what these look like. So we're going to say 5 years after you graduate from college, your goal is I want to buy a house for $250,000. Cool. What we say in our office is that you have to have at least 10% saved up put as a down payment on that house. So we're saying you'll need $25,000 as a down payment. And then what we're going to say is on top of it, in order to pull that off, you have to save $425 a month for 5 years. So if this ends up being your goal in the goal space or whatever, you have to write down that this is going to cost you $425 a month. And then just for frame of reference, after you meet your goal and you buy the house, even though you've put all this money towards it, you will be paying $1,500 a month for the next 30 years, just as a frame of reference. The next one, let's say you want to start a family. In order to do that, we're going to say you need to save $10,000 in order to do this. And in order to pull this off 5 years after you graduate from college, you have to save $175 a month for each month of those 5 years. Okay? So if this ends up being your goal, write $175. Next one, let's say you're like, you know what? School is awesome. I want to do more of it. All right, cool. Well, what we're going to say you need to do is you need to save $8,000 for graduate school. You're not going to find it, or you're not going to fund this all through student loans. You are going to pay a little bit out of pocket here. So you need to save $8,000. And you're going to do this in 2 years, which means you have to save $325 a month for each month of the next 2 years. And then let's just say you decide, okay, school was great. I'm done with it. I want to go have a little bit of fun for myself. I'm going to save $5,000 for a really nice vacation. What you're going to have to do there is you're going to save $200 a month for each month of the next 2 years. And then the final goal, again, the sexiest one that we have here at the Money Smarts program, is you're going to pay off your student loans in 5 years rather than 10 years. And so if you do that, this is what the dollar amount looks like per month. And this replaces what I told you earlier. So instead of paying $320 a month on that $30,000 in debt, you're going to replace it and say, it's now going to cost me $575 a month for the next 5 years rather than $320 for the next 10. And so if you think about that, if you're doing any sort of math in your head, this will save you a ton of money, which is the reason why I like doing this so much. So if you want to do this choice, write this down. So I'll give you a couple seconds here. Here are all the goals that we listed. Remember, choose one, or at least one. If you want to choose two, power to you. Just write this stuff down and write the dollar amounts, and this is what it'll look like for you. So I'll give you a couple seconds here. Jim, any heckling needed?
No, buddy, you are doing great.
Okay. How we doing on time?
Yeah, we should be wrapping up here in the next 5-10, I would think. If you can manage that, that would be.
I can definitely do that. So.
Yeah, and without all my interference, I think you should have no problem. I do want to insert a friendly plug for the chat. If there are any questions at all for anything Phil has gone through, why did we pick the names Dollar Springs and Moneyopolis, or anything at all, feel free to punch them in the chat. You can also use the raise hand feature, and we can go through questions that way if anything comes up imminently. But we are recording this session for posterity, Phil. No pressure. So we'll have this down the road as needed. Reference.
Awesome. All right. So this is where it gets a little bit weird in the online space. Also, it gets weird when my slides don't get to have the animation associated with it. This would be a picture of a car crash happening and then balloons popping out of one of the trucks. What we always say in life is that we have uh-ohs, the expenses that just come up. We don't plan for them to happen or anything along those lines, but they sort of come out of nowhere. Our office is trying to figure out exactly how we're going to start doing these uh-ohs in a remote setting. What I am going to attempt to do is just pull out something randomly here. I've got some cards in front of me, a 1 through 10. I am going to pick randomly and see how much you either going to gain or lose. So in this case, what everybody has gotten at this point is we've plagiarized the Monopoly game. You all have won second prize in a beauty contest, so congratulations for all tying in second place in this beauty contest. Everybody gets an additional $10 this month. It's not really that much, but congratulations, you get an additional $10. What we always say with the uh-ohs is they could be good or bad just based on what's happening in life, but we always want you to realize that there are unexpected expenses or unexpected income that may come in on a regular basis. In terms of living expenses, and I'm going to pull up the chat just to make sure. Okay, so living expenses. Here's what we got in our place. So in apartments, these are the 4 places from which you can choose to live. Your studio apartment, your 1-bedroom apartment, your 2-bedroom apartment, or your 3-bedroom apartment. The costs are associated there. For some reason, we got really specific with the cost of the 2-bedroom apartment of $984 a month. Everything else is rounded nicely. Don't ask me why we did that. What's important to note about your housing situation is this is what the cost would be per person and whether or not you choose to have roommates or not. So if you live in a 1-bedroom apartment and you have 1 roommate, it's going to cost you $400. Also to note is if you live in a one-bedroom apartment, you have one roommate, and so there's a total of 2 people in that place, it's going to cost you $110 for your utilities and water. So take a look at this real quickly, realize whether or not you are a person that would prefer to live by yourself or with roommates, and then write down what the associated cost is with that space. And I'll give you guys all a few seconds. All right. And I am going to apologize if I go a little bit too fast here, but the slides will be available for you all to look at later on as well. All right. Technology, the fun part, especially now because everybody needs it at this point. So what we're letting you know about is that we do have Hulu and Netflix in our world. You can choose from one of these options, although we're working to actually lessen the number of options you have. But if you want Hulu with live TV, it's $40 a month. If you want Netflix that allows you to be able to share it with one other person, it's going to cost you $13. If you have the sheet, you should be able to just circle these things. But if you're a person that doesn't want those things, you don't have to have them, because Hulu, Netflix, it's not necessarily a necessity. But if you like this stuff, then you got to go for it. We do think everybody needs to have internet. And so you can choose whatever relevant internet speed you'd like to have there. And then if you'd like to have just cable television, satellite television, whatever you want to say there, you can choose from your packages down below. But in the case of television, we tell people, if you don't want it, if you just rather rely on Hulu or Netflix, go for it. So write those things down real quickly. And then on top of that, the cell phone. And this is where things get a little bit weird, and we like to show people how you can spend money on technology. So what we do say is everybody has to have a cell phone, and that $20 at the top is required. If you just choose to have a flip phone, one that doesn't give you access to email, the internet, anything along those lines, it's going to be just an additional $5 per month. So your cell phone cost would be $25 a month. But if you decide you want to have a Samsung Galaxy, an iPhone, anything along those lines, and you choose to have that smartphone option, it's going to cost you the $20 line access plus the $35 a month for the phone, plus whatever you want to do for the data plan down at the bottom. So if you choose to have a smartphone, the least amount of money you're going to be spending per month is going to be $90. So that 20 plus 35 plus 35. And the most you're going to be spending per month is $135. So, choose wisely here. We see most people go the smartphone route, but always be honest with yourself. Like, if you don't need it, don't get it. And then once you've made all those selections, then you'll put them all in here. Again, if you have the sheet, you'll be able to circle these things without any problem. The O expense, I'm going to skip this next one. We'll do one more at the end here, but for time purposes, I'm going to skip it because I want to talk to you all about transportation. So, as I said earlier, your commute is going to be sort of a key in this process. So what we are saying is basically, if you are living in Dollar Springs and you are traveling to Moneyopolis, you have the option of either taking a 1.5-hour train ride plus walk both ways every day, or you could have a 1-hour car drive. If you live in Dollar Springs and travel to Dollar Springs, you either only have to do a 10-minute car drive or a 30-minute bus ride. If you live in Moneyopolis and you travel to Dollar Springs, you either have that same 1.5-hour long train ride plus walk or an hour-long car drive. Or if you live in Moneyopolis and travel in Moneyopolis for your work, it's either a 20-minute car drive or a 45-minute bus ride. So what you have to be honest with yourself about here is, how do I want to navigate my transportation expenses? And this is true, too, while you're in school as well. Like, if you're coming to IU and you have access to the bus route on campus, like, that is a free service for you to use. But if you choose to bring a car or something along those lines with you, you have to pay for parking permits. Everybody apparently gets, fines for parking in the wrong space because you park in the wrong space when you're in IU. You might have a car payment associated with it. You could have all these additional transportation costs, whereas you could spend next to nothing by just taking the bus or walking to from everywhere. Again, this is not to say that one option is necessarily better than the other. It's just to say that these are some of the considerations you have to make in the process. So as it relates to you all for the simulation, if you're a person that says, I'm going to use an option that involves the train, that train's going to cost you $100 a month. If you are a person that says, I have an option that's going to involve the bus, that bus is going to cost you $60 a month. But if you're a person that wants to have a car, this is what it looks like. And in our world, we only have 3 cars from which you can choose. The economy car, which is going to cost you $435 a month, the midsize, which is going to cost you $620, and the truck that's going to cost you $800. And that's because you've got the car payment every month, the gas payment every month, and the insurance payment every month. So choose wisely with these things. And again, you can see sort of the difference between having to have a car and not having to have a car. And put all that stuff down there in the bottom. Potentially the most important category here for everyone, at least it is for me, is the food aspect. Food is pretty simple in this game, but I want you to be considerate about what your living situation is like. If you're a person that's living on your own, food is going to cost you $200 a month. And this is all just groceries. If you're a person that's living with another person in your house, it's $175 a month for you. If you're living with 2 other people, it's $150 a month. What's important to note, though, is if you are a person that lives with another person and you don't like sharing your food, let's just say your roommate likes to eat all the chips that you buy on a regular basis, you never get access to those chips, and so you get really passive aggressive and don't tell the person about that, but you're like, I'm really mad at that person. Again, speaking hypothetically, choose just one person, that $200. But if you're okay with sharing, then choose one of those other options depending on your living situation. The dining out down at the bottom, this is basically saying that $90 is saying like you're going to eat out 1 time per week per month. That's going to cost you $90. If you eat out 2 times a week, it's $180 for the month, and then 3 times a week is $270 per month. We know these prices might be a little bit inflated, but we like to have people spend a little bit extra on this just so they can see how it affects their budget overall. And then you'll write that stuff down there. And then the final piece, again, I'm going to skip the uh-ohs here. The final piece is this. These are all the other things that you have to consider in your life. Money between toiletries, clothes, laundries, haircut, all this kind of stuff. And the prices differ based on whether or not you live in Minneapolis or you live in Dollar Springs. What we do say is anything that has an asterisk next to it is something that's required. So you have to have toiletries, you have to have clothes, and you have to do your laundry, because I don't want to smell you. Nobody else wants to smell you. We want you to smell springtime fresh, basically, is what we're saying here. So if that's the case, what we want you to do is we want you to write down that dollar amount for those things and say that's what you're going to be spending on a monthly basis. And then from there, if you're a person that says, like, I am going to get a haircut every month, then write that down. If you want to buy more clothes than beyond what's just necessary, if you are a person that likes to do tanning, massages, nails, all those types of things, write that down there. If you do makeup every month, write that down. If you want to own a pet after you graduate, write that down. If you want to join a gym, write that down. All of those things that don't have the asterisk next to it, they're not required, but it's all based off of personal preference. And so you write those things down, and then what we encourage you to do afterwards is just total it all up and see what you did compared to what your income is per month, and see whether or not you finished in the red or you finished in the black. And basically, whether or not this is post-graduation or if this is in school, we encourage everyone to sort of keep track of their expenses like this on a regular basis so you know how you're doing financially. And then the bottom line is, like, with whatever questions you do have or with whatever concerns come up, contact our office. Again, go to moneysmarts.iu.edu. You can practice on your own with our budgeting calculator, and just reach out to us with any questions you may have. I hope there's some value in this to you all. At the very least, I hope this gets you to start thinking about your financial experience while you're in school. Again, we're happy to help in whatever way we can with any financial questions you have. Good luck to you all, and I hope you're all doing well, and I'll turn it back over to Jim.
They don't call him the one and only for nothing, folks. Phil Schuman, thank you very much. Again, we are around for questions through the chat or live as needed through today's program. So certainly a very good indication every time I go through that game and have the opportunity to see Phil in action, I always come away like a little uneasy, like there are all these kind of bills and expenses crushing down, and it seems like a lot of pressure at the time. But Phil had some very good guidance about selecting your goals and figuring out what is important to you to have an impact in your life and in society. And I think getting started on this track earlier, obviously, the better. So we appreciate Phil's perspective. And you are going to stick around if we have any questions, correct? You're not just taking your guitars and moseying, right?
You guys are going to be walking through my house. I'll have my video off, but I will be here the rest of the way because I have to do the traditional cleaning of the house on Saturday, which is
sure. You could also enlist your friendly neighborhood architect that's in the house to do some help with that, maybe.
Yep. That is what she is going to be doing here pretty soon. So I will be here. Again, thanks everyone. Looking forward to seeing you all here in person, hopefully some point in the near future. So thanks, Jim.
Terrific. Thanks, partner. Turn it now to Emily Arth, Senior Associate Director in the Office of Scholarships here at IUB. Emily will take us through some very key information on the college aspect, the higher education aspect of what Phil has just discussed. So she might discuss clothing and toiletries, you never know, but we're going to focus on some scholarship options here at IUB. With that, Emily, we will send it to you. Take it away.
As Jim mentioned, my name is Emily Arth, and I work in the IU Office of Scholarships. And I love the family that mentioned, hey, we're new to Zoom. For some of us who've been working on it for 3 months, clearly some days Zoom challenges us as well. So we wish we could be together in person for so many reasons. But on behalf of my office, and I know all of the wonderful colleagues on this call, I do want to take a minute to acknowledge what a time it has been in our state, our country, and our world, and wish you all safety and health. And this is interesting topic to be chatting with you all about, because what we're talking about gives you all the opportunity to make a difference and turn some of the things around in our world that we all need to be working on. So when we think about what happens after high school, Phil just gave you an excellent overview of what are some of the things that we all, even those of us who are done with our undergrad or our master's degree, still think about every day. Whether that's exciting or daunting, I don't know, but hopefully his information was helpful in that regard. What I'm going to do is hopefully share some resources with you as you start to think about college that could help support funding it. As we all hear in the news, as Phil said, the reason why his office was created, we all know college can be expensive and the costs associated with it. So I'm going to share a little bit about how it currently works at IU Bloomington. I know based on where you all are at in your age range, and maybe you have older siblings, one of the things we always have to share from our office is that this can change every year. So this first slide is probably maybe one of the most important. If anything, if you need to go take a water break or something like that, I just want you to remember that we're here. I am in a separate office from financial aid, but I'm going to talk about what that means here next. So scholarships at IU, and quite frankly, some of this information that I'm going to share today, you could apply this wherever you go to college, if you so choose. And there are two kinds of scholarships. Jim mentioned this earlier. I like to first talk about the merit-based scholarships. So there's a definition on the screen, and then I'm going to give you Emily's definition. Merit-based scholarships are the scholarships you get because you rock, right? You get these scholarships because perhaps you've earned really good grades, maybe because you did really great on a standardized test, because you've been really involved, you've worked really hard, you've had leadership positions, you've held a job, you are all around awesome, and that is what merit means. So it's not a word we use often day to day, but that's what we call it in the scholarship world. And then the next kind are need-based scholarships. And those, that one's a little bit easier to understand. That is based on your financial need. It too is very personal, and a lot of it is correlated to some of the information that Phil just went through with you. So to get an idea of how do scholarships help me fund my college, I want to share with you right now, not to scare you, but to be very realistic about what the costs of a year at IU looks like right now. So this is for our students who just finished up their year. And kind of like Phil walked you through all the different costs of life, when we talk about the costs of college, we break them down into these 5, I'll call them buckets today at IU Bloomington. We have tuition and fees. First, that's what goes towards your faculty, towards your learning experience, your school, the knowledge that you're going to gain. That money is what is going to fund your tuition. Fees are an interesting word in higher education. And when we talk about fees, perhaps one of you wants to be a chemistry major and one of you wants to be a psychology major like me. That's what I did at IU. Those two may have different fees associated with them because of the materials and the resources needed in your program. So that's the first bucket. The second one is your room and board. That is also not language that we use day to day very often. That means where you're going to sleep, hang out, and what you're going to eat. Board, I have no idea where the history of that word comes from, but those are your meal points in college. And so as you can see right now, those are about the tuition and fees and room and board are roughly about the same. What is interesting and important to keep in mind at IU, and you may look at other schools down the road and this could change, but we have varied options for your housing and your meal plan. It is not one price for everyone. So for the current students that are going to be on the call answering questions in a little bit, or if I were to bring in 5 or 10 scholars from my office, and if we put up all of their bills on the screen, which we wouldn't do because that's their personal information, but stick with me here, all of their bills are going to look a little different because those students each are maybe going to have a different major. They lived in a different residence hall. They had different fees. And maybe some of them chose to get auditorium season tickets or basketball season tickets or football or musical arts center and things of that nature, or hopefully no parking tickets. But any of your fees associated with the university will come in on that bill. Now, the second half of the slide talks about indirect costs. So this is something that is very personalized by each student. And we want to make sure when we help you create your budget for college, you have room in there to remember that you are responsible for some other costs associated to college, not just tuition and fees, not just your housing and meal plan, but you need to think about your books and supplies that you're going to need in the classroom, and those you have to pay for. And then personal expenses. Again, going back to Phil's exercise after college, during college, you still have to eat. You still need clothes. And you still may, want to go to the movies with a friend when our world safely reopens and we can do those kind of fun things, right? And then the last one is transportation. What if you didn't know, I see right now we have a family on from Indianapolis right down the road. Hello. We also have students from IU from all 50 states and over 60 countries at IU. And so it is so nice to say welcome to everyone. And when we say that, today we're talking to people from the state of Indiana. So you probably think, oh, well, I don't need to budget too much to get back and forth from Bloomington because I just need to think about the gas associated with in-state travel. But it's important to think about if you want to go to college out of state, what that might look like, or out of the country, and those types of fees associated with it. And in just a second, I'm going to show you this slide again, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the benefits if you are a 21st century scholar, and how we can even further support you at IU. But I want to share a few other resources. The next one is this word. It's actually an acronym, the FAFSA. I bet if we were in a classroom right now or in an auditorium or together in person where I could see all of your faces, and I said, how many of you have heard about the FAFSA? I hope that you could all at least raise your hand. And in fact, you can use the little button if you want to raise your hand. But if you are not familiar at the FAFSA, this is something about as a family, you'll want to start thinking about early. We tell every student when they come to IU, they should always have one online. You can see on the screen, it stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Earlier, I mentioned those two types of aid, need-based and merit-based. To get any need-based aid, so any scholarships or financial aid based on your financial background, you have to have one of these on file. So that's a really critical resource to think about down the road as you take away from all of the resources that we're sharing with you today, which I know can be a lot. That's why we're going to record it and share it with you. So let's break this down further in a little bit about what kinds of financial aid are out there. There are grants. So some of my colleagues, when we talk about this, we say, this is the good aid. This is the gift aid, meaning you don't have to pay this kind back. Right now, again, this could change down the road based on a lot of things in our state and our country. But right now, for students who go to IU, if their need background is assessed and they are eligible, they can get aid from our federal government, as well as our state, Indiana state aid. Of course, that's only for students from the state of Indiana. And then we also have grants available through the institution from IU for students who need them. There is a wonderful program called Federal Work Study. I bet if we were together and I said, hey, raise your hands, how many of you are thinking it might be important to get a job when you're in college? In fact, at a very reasonable amount of hours, we recommend to students to hold a job while they're in college, because we have data that shows students can balance their classwork and their involvement and having a job. And in fact, the students that do, it helps them with their time management. And so that can be another additional resource if you have a job. Work Study helps place you with that and in the current state of that program. And then the last one are loans. And those are, not that they're bad when I talked about grants being good, but loans are the ones that you get to borrow the money, but then you're going to have to pay it back someday, and potentially with some interest. So that could mean a higher amount than what you borrowed it at. And so there are different types of loans. The kind that you can get through the FAFSA for students, we call those subsidized and unsubsidized loans. And then parents and guardians are also able to take out loans to help support you. And then take it a step further, you can go through a private lender, a bank or an institution like that, and borrow money as well. Kind of going into blending what I'm sharing with what Phil shared. We know at the end of the day, it's a very personal decision about your education and where you want to go to school, and what your family wants to invest in it, because we also always want to have this conversation. If we assume that you're going to be able to do your degree in 4 years, that average, some students buzz through in 3, others take 5. And if you're going to try to get through in that 4-year plan, you need to not just think about how do I budget a year of college, but how do I budget 4 years of college? And how much borrowing and loans am I willing to take that will impact what Phil just shared with you after college? So that is a little bit about just a snippet of financial aid. Now, the way that we determine, some students say to us, Vince and I get this a lot with students, how do you know if I have need? What defines me having financial need? Because we all have our own stories in this world, and we all have our own challenges and our backgrounds. And right now at IU, that is why the FAFSA is so important. That is the tool that we use to assess your need. I do want to acknowledge that doesn't always paint the full picture. And that is also why my office and Vince's office and many other offices on campus are here to help students. But just to start with, you'll keep hearing me say this, that's why that FAFSA is important, because what we can do, what's on the screen, is we can calculate. We can take that total cost of attendance, that slide I showed earlier with all of the graphics and the costs. And then what we can do is we can subtract what the FAFSA tells us you are available to contribute to your college education based on your need. And then you'll be able to have a real picture of, okay, what's left for me out of pocket. There is a phrase that we use to determine this equation. You'll see it at the bottom there. It's called expected family contribution, EFC. That is going to be important if you are a 21st century scholar right now. If you were to be one right now at IU, some of our current scholars know how that affects them. Because we take that amount into what you can contribute. So if you can imagine some loans, some scholarships, some grants, your EFC is what we believe you can contribute as a family. Again, I want to acknowledge that sometimes that may not be the case due to extenuating circumstances. Right now, we're living through one of the greatest extenuating circumstances. Many of our students and their parents and guardians had jobs 3 months ago and they don't now, right? And we know that we want to be able to do everything we can to help our students get through this challenge, as well as before this, we know every family has their story. So to help with that, that would turn us into our next slide, which, by the way, this picture is from Culture Fest, one of our events in Welcome Week. Vince is smiling, where we all usually get to see each other. And it just makes me smile when I think about the performers at Culture Fest. But I'm here to talk to you about scholarships, not Welcome Week, so I'll hold tight.
Vince taught this gentleman that move, by the way. I've seen Vince move, and he can get up a little bit still.
I know. Mark your calendars. Culture Fest.
Another perk of attending IUB, right?
That's right. That's great. So I just talked about all of the different things that I've shared so far that could help you with that cost. Scholarships, as I talked about earlier, merit-based scholarships, different types of scholarships to help you support your education. At IU, we have a really unique structure to do this in that we have a separate office, my office, for scholarships. And so the best way that we currently direct students to it is in our student portal. Perhaps some of the students that are on the call right now would say, oh my gosh, yes, I use one.iu every day for different things. And that was even before remote learning. They were using it every day when we are in person, and will continue when we do reopen safely in person. Specifically, there is a scholarships tab or an app. This, along with our website, is where we direct our students for the most up-to-date resources. And before we go to the next one, I do want to pause and take a step back and let you know something a little personal about my reason why I chose to go to IU. I grew up in Indiana in a very, very small town, actually right outside of West Lafayette. So I grew up with a little bit of black and gold in my life, and I was a big trader and came to IU and never left. I'm a very proud Hoosier, but where I grew up was a very small rural farming community in northern Indiana, where I thought that going to a high school where I graduated with about 60 or 80 people, I thought that was a lot of people. So as you can imagine, when I went on my first tour at IU, my eyes were just like this, right? Like, whoa, there's a lot of people. And I will tell you, there are so many reasons why I personally grew from going to a large school, but I'm going to tie this back to why I'm here in scholarships. At IU and at any big school that you're going to look at, some students, the large school can seem overwhelming. And you think, gosh, how do I find my place in a big school like this? What I can tell you is that we work very hard on making sure that our students feel like a individual person, respecting everything and anything about you and where you come from and where you want to go, and supporting you in that process, and not look at making it sound like, oh, wow, 40,000 students go here and I'm just one of that number. So that being said, I tie this to, my office is called the Office of Scholarships. Funny enough, we don't run all the scholarships on campus. And you will learn that at IU, we may have one office for something, but there are a lot of people who are going to be here to help you. And that is how scholarships work. So if you called my office, I would say, let's look at the website. Let's look at that app I just showed you. Let's also look at scholarships that exist outside of the university. But then I'm also going to point you to resources across campus, because we have students that may have a scholarship from my office. They may have it based on their academic major. Let's say they're going to be a teacher and do one of the most important jobs in our world in teaching our youth. And so they get a scholarship from the School of Education, our office, and perhaps they're a 21st century scholar, so they have this scholarship as well. These non-IU scholarships are a critical resource because I'm going to give you a little secret. I want you to come to IU, and so do my colleagues on this call. But this resource will be there as long as scholarships exist, because there are tons of scholarships out in the world to support you wherever you go. And so what my staff has done is put together search engines and resources to help you. So I do want to pause and point this out on our website. I believe at any age, it is not too young to go to this part of our website and see what is out in the world. We did this presentation on Thursday. Days are hard. Thursday for a group of students who have been admitted to IU. They're coming to IU. They're underrepresented minority students, and their parents were on this call, and they were saying, what else is out there besides at IU? We shared this, and one of our current scholars, he shared, and hey, I'm a twin, and did you know there's scholarships for twins? Now, that might not apply to you if you're not a twin, but there are so many unique scholarships out there, so I really can't enforce this page enough. So next, we're going to get to why we hope that you're all here. If you are already getting into the 21st century program or considering it, Vince mentioned, he did a little spoiler alert at the beginning of the call, the webinar here, about our covenant. We call that a commitment to our 21st century scholars. It's an additional scholarship to what the state covers. So I'm going to flip to my next slide and adjust my earphones just a second. I think all of us are getting used to working at home with family and pets and everything, so I apologize. Okay, so on this slide, I brought back earlier, if we were in person, I would say to you, does anyone know why I crossed out that tuition and fees? It's not going away. I didn't cross it out for that. That's because if you are a 21st century scholar in the state of Indiana and you stay on track, which our colleagues are going to talk more about here shortly, the state has a powerful gift in taking care of that for you through the 21st century scholarship. So for a moment, that's why I put a very, very thin X through it to think, wow, if I'm a 21st century scholar and I stay on track, I could have that covered to me. What a gift. At IU Bloomington, we want to help further support you if you're a 21st century scholar by helping contribute to some or potentially all of what I put in the box there, and that's your room and board and books and supplies. Again, I'm going to go back to my example earlier. If we put 5 21st century scholars on this call right now, all of them would probably have a different value of what their 21st century covenant would look like. It is assessed personally based on your financial need. And for some students, folks, believe it or not, it can cover everything that is in that box. For others, it may only cover a small portion, but as a lot of our students tell us, every little bit helps, right? And so the covenant is reassessed like all scholarships every year. So that's the most I'm going to get into right now. I just want you to know that it exists, it's there, and we're here to support you with that. 2 other quick resources I want to point out, and I apologize, Vince, or anyone else if you were going to cover this, but for any of our students on the call who identify as an underrepresented minority student, and in fact, the Hudson Holland Scholars Program is open to all students with a focus on supporting minority students, but again, all students can apply. This is an incredible scholarship program, and some of our 21st century scholars have this as well. And what is so special about 21st century scholars, Hudson Holland, is that it's not just money, because there's more to scholarships than just helping you pay the bill. We want to support you and help you get through your degree and do it successfully. And as you can see on the screen, yes, there's a money component there, but there is a lot of support to make sure that you succeed in and out of the classroom. Another scholarship that does a great job at that is the Cox Scholars Program. Because y'all are from Indiana, I wanted to put a plug out for this. This endowment was made possible by two incredible native Hoosiers who didn't have children, and they said they wanted to take their success in life and give it to students who might not otherwise be able to do so. That's them, Jesse and Beulah Cox. And I apologize, Jim, if you'll go back for a second. The uniqueness about this scholarship is that you'll see right there in the first two words, hardworking, for hardworking students. When I said earlier, scholarships come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes a scholarship goes if you have a 4.0, top 10% of your class, a great test score, president of clubs and organizations, maybe in a faith-based background. Mr. and Mrs. Cox said, you know what? We didn't get straight A's at IU, but we worked really hard. And so when we look for students in this scholarship program, we're going to look for students who have been working, having a job, being involved. And you know what, maybe you didn't get a 4.0, and that's okay because you were working and helping support yourself or your family. And this scholarship packages around any other age you might have and is a full ride to IU. We bring in about 50 to 60 students from the state of Indiana in this. And while oftentimes students aren't a 21st century student and a Cox Scholar, every now and then they are. But the reason I just want to share this is because it is a great example of not all scholarships have to go to all students who have perfect test scores and a perfect GPA. We want you to do your best in the classroom, but a lot of opportunities out there. So going back to Mr. and Mrs. Cox, I also wanted to share with you that they obviously still believed in the power of knowledge and in education with this beautiful quote. And it's something that we believe at IU. And I think now more than ever, we want our students to come get this fundamental knowledge from what I believe and hope to continue to provide is a safe, welcoming environment for all students. And then now more than ever, take it out into our world and to do good for everyone. So to wrap up my portion of today, a quick reminder to sum it all up. It is never too early to contact our office, get in touch with us. We have a proud graduate of IU and the 21st Century Scholars Program who is a full-time staff member with our office who has a lot of responsibilities, but one of them is to sit with families one-on-one, and he does a tremendous job, and we are committed to continuing to offer that one-on-one service to walk you through resources. Because we had a student tell us a couple of years ago, she was a 21st Century Scholars student, and she was on her own. Her parents could not help her pay for her education. And we know many students have that background. And she said to us, you know, Emily, some weeks I feel like searching for scholarships is a full-time job. And I said, wow, that is so true. And our office is here to help you with that, to point you in the right direction of resources in our office, at IU, and outside of IU. And so don't be overwhelmed with our recommendations of spending time searching for it, but also let us help you. So lastly, a reminder of our connection, our information. And just like Phil, I am gonna stay on the call. I wish we could be together in person. I look forward to when we can all be together safely, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for including us, and I'll turn it back over to Jim.
Emily, thank you so much. Chock full of great information as
always. Yes.
Yeah, just a lot out there. Again, we've got the recording. We'll have all the slides available to participants afterwards as well, and to our presenters. And again, just thank you so much for your time this morning. I want to transition quickly to Britney Collins from the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. We've talked a lot about just the benefits of the 21st Century Scholarship. I mean, 4 years of tuition and fees covered at a school here in Indiana, and a lot of that is based on maintaining your scholarship, maintaining the requirements through the Scholar Track platform. And Brittany's going to walk us through some of the details of that this morning. Good morning, Brittany.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone that's joined us this morning. It's been a lot of great information, and really want to again, further drive home the point of how you can really unlock these resources further and further, not only through your 21st Century Scholarship, but again, plugging in early with our awesome institutional partners like Indiana University. So going to briefly go through how you can navigate the Scholar Track system. We talked about in the first session the overall enrollment process of the program, and that was more so parent guardian facing of how you can get your student signed up and what that looks like. But we wanted to take some time today because the student or the scholar as well will also need to access this system in order to track those requirements. And this is how you show the state that you're maintaining the eligibility and putting in that hard work in order to receive that award as you enter college and as you renew it based on the college requirements that are in place as well. So again, briefly for folks who do not know, the 21st Century Scholarship has been around for 30 years. We're very proud of that. It is for income eligible 7th or 8th grade students. If you are currently in 8th grade or you are a parent or guardian of an 8th grader, we definitely want to stress that you have until June 30th to get your student enrolled in the program. And again, with some of the activities I'll share in the next slide and how you use our system, it'll show how your student can maintain those requirements in high school in order to receive that award at an Indiana institution. So some brief things about the pledge. There is an academic component, core 40 high school diploma, cumulative 2.5 GPA at the end. We do want you to complete the Scholar Success Program, which is designed to really help to prepare you for these things that have been mentioned throughout. To navigate this college process in a way that's very affordable. The state is very mindful, and we want to make the college going process, your post-secondary process, as affordable as possible so that you can launch into your life and hopefully have minimal to no debt in going through that experience. Of course, applying for college admissions as a high school senior to an eligible Indiana college or university, refrain from using alcohol and drugs or committing a crime or delinquent act as a high school student or under that legal age, and apply for financial aid on time as a high school senior and each year that you're in college. So that is that free application for student aid that Emily mentioned earlier. So you do need to file your FAFSA each year that you plan to utilize your 21st Century Scholarship. So that's woven into our Scholar Success Program. So these, again, are 12 intentional activities. And again, the case has already been made for us on why you should do several of these things. Again, it's really to help make college affordable. And we hope that as you go through the Scholar Success Program, it really maximizes your full opportunity for, again, where you want to attend throughout the state of Indiana, as well as additional financial aid and other scholarships and things and programs that you may qualify for as you get ready to enter these various institutions. So again, to note, if you have a high school student already who may not be a 21st Century Scholar, they can access the Scholar Track system as well and go through the Scholar Success Program activities. There are resources that are definitely required and helpful information for 21st Century Scholars, but it's useful information for any Indiana high school student. For me, I wish I'd had this roadmap like this. There were a lot of things I had to do on the fly. I graduated a year early, but with me being ready to leave high school didn't necessarily mean I was fully prepared to enter college and know what that meant. So that meant I entered with no scholarship money, even with academic strength. And really, we want to promote these programs. So again, you can really maximize it and make it as easy as possible. Luckily, you can do that and still graduate with no debt. I'm a living testament to that. But the road definitely could have been even easier going through these intentional steps on the roadmap. So you can work ahead. If you notice, Search for Scholarships is a junior year activity, but you by all means can check that off earlier on in the process. And that's a key activity that I stress to students you should revisit often in each year of the program, because there are additional search engines and sites that can help you continuously search for more financial opportunities to help fund your education. Also, there's some video modules that are built within that you'll access through the Scholar Track system that again further break down some of these pieces of what are all the costs of college, how do you make all these different things come together between loans, scholarships, grants, and what have you. So make sure that you check out those modules as well as a good refresher from the information today too. There's also a quiz to help really hope that you've locked in and submitted that information so that you understand the road ahead. So you're, again, as prepared as possible to make the wisest, most affordable decision as you navigate college. So how do you get into the system? You can go to www.scholartrack.in.gov. That'll take you right to our main page. We do want to stress this, that again, for 21st Century Scholars, this is something that your students should really go ahead and create that account as they're making that transition from 8th grade to high school. Go ahead, start them off strong this summer and have them start to play around in the system. and get acclimated. But again, this is where we house all Indiana State financial aid. So we provide more than the 21st Century Scholarship. So we definitely stress, again, as students progress into high school, that they create an account as well so that they can see those different scholarship opportunities, go through those applications. And then when they're on the college side, they'll also be able to have a picture and dashboard to see, which we'll show here in a little bit, what additional aid that they're receiving from the state. And you'll even see monetary dollar amounts of what those awards look like for students, so that that can help you budget and plan as you go through year to year with your education. So how do you get signed up? You can click the register for an account tab that's right underneath the not registered yet. We also have that click here on the other side, again, if you've not created an account, to help guide you. And there is a register button at the top right-hand corner. So many different ways to access. When you open that up, you're gonna see a drop down on what account type. Again, for students, make sure that you click that. We do wanna add a caveat. Maybe you're a parent or guardian who maybe has already signed up and you use that to enroll your scholar or connect with your student. That's great. Within your created account, you can also be a student. So if you happen to be a parent who's also going through college coursework, you can also see your own state financial aid profile through that as well. So there is some dual functionality. Just something that we do want to stress: if you have a middle or high school student, make sure that they have their own student account in ScholarTrack. They can't complete activities through your own account. You can't share an email between accounts. So that's something that we do want to stress early on too. But this is what they'll select, that particular account type. So what do they need when they click that button? They'll select the type of account that they want to set up based on the information that they have. So it is pretty common for a student to start off with a limited access account that's normally created with the student's test number that's provided by the Indiana Department of Education to every Indiana student at an accredited IDOE school. So that may be something that they receive from the counselor. Also, if you've already enrolled your student in the 21st Century Scholars Program, they'll receive a Scholar ID number. So that is a number that is given to them by the state that identifies their profile within our state financial aid system. The other way they can create an account is a full account. That's something we stress: the sooner that someone can have a full account, the better, so they can maximize, again, all the options in the system. That can be created with that student's social security number. So again, you'll pick whichever information you have to get them set up. You can start with limited and always upgrade the account with the social later. But again, different ways to access. Then you'll put in the student's name. Please make sure that that name matches the record that you have on file for how they're enrolled in their school. That just helps us with keeping our data matched up and clean. An email address. We recommend the student at this point in time could utilize their school email. That's fine if that's what they have and they most commonly use, but we do recommend by the time that student, especially as they're wrapping up junior year, they've switched that over to their own personal email account that they can access on their own, because we know that that high school account will go away. The only caveat to that, our system does not like iCloud. We tried, we worked through it, but something with permissions and things, it will not allow you to receive the information from us to set up your account. So we recommend Yahoo, Gmail, live accounts, those types of things. Then you'll click the CAPTCHA piece at the bottom after you do your date of birth. And we do want to highlight, because this does catch up students sometimes, it's a 2-digit month, 2-digit date, 4-digit year, especially that 4-digit year part. So you do want to make sure that folks know that, because it won't let you go through until you do that. So if you've entered everything in correctly, the Create My Account button will light up. You can click forward. You'll get this screen that lets you know, congrats, thank you for creating your account. Next, you'll head to your email inbox from the email address you've provided, and then you'll see a message from us. So you'll look for the do not reply at che.in.gov. And we'll send you a message to give you the link to finish with your password creation. Please click this blue hyperlink right here that you see notated with the arrow. That will take you to that next step. Do not click the login here button, because you don't have a password yet, so you can't log in. With our passwords, they do need to be at least 10 characters, have upper and lowercase letters, at least one special character, and at least one number. But to help you along that process, those items turn green as you enter them in to make sure that you've got everything covered. So once all those turn green and the passwords that you've entered match up, you're good to go. And then you'll get this screen that will show that your password has been officially set. You can actually click the here in that message and it'll take you right back to the home screen where you can now log in with your email address and that password that you just set up. Now, again, for younger students, it may also ask some additional questions. It may ask what school that you go to and what your senior graduating year is. And then we'll also ask you for some security questions. So in the event you get logged out, we have these security questions in place that you can answer so that'll allow you to reset your password, change your email, those types of things. Once you've done all of that, you'll be able to access the system. So the screenshot that you have here actually shows what a limited access account looks like. So what it'll do, it'll drop you right at the activities. You can go in and start to plug away. Again, you'll answer the prompts that are within each activity and go through the different pieces. Be very mindful of the elements that say watch. So that again is a video-based activity that includes a quiz. And so you will not receive that green check mark until you've gotten 100% on the quiz. You can take it as many times as you need to, but again, it won't be marked as complete with us until, again, you've gotten all those answers correct. And again, this can be some heavy information, so don't feel bad if you didn't get them all right on the first try. That's okay. The main goal for us is that you do learn it and you do understand it, so that can save you some pain and trouble in the long run in understanding, especially the financial elements of getting ready to go to college. So again, I mentioned this doesn't go away as you continue to progress and go into college and you land at your campus, so you go to Indiana University and you start that roadmap to success. You still need to log activities with us. So this is actually new for the class of 2019 and younger, that they are now required to do some additional things on the system to really make sure you continue to use resources. That's the overall goal of this. So to nudge you to stay involved at your campuses, also prepare for life after college by going through these helpful career preparation activities, and then good general things to keep you on track. So 30 credit hours per year, so that hopefully you are done in 4 years, because we know that you tend to have less debt when you finish your degree on time. Maintaining academic progress, satisfactory academic progress, again, continuing to follow your FAFSA each year. And then another piece is making sure you have a mentor or champion. So again, that can be found within your campus or within your community, but we do want you to be mindful of who is your supporter in your circle that is pushing you through this process. And so that if you don't have one, we encourage you to seek one out because it can be valuable in that experience. There's plenty of staff here to help you. There are different ways that you can get in contact with us. There are regional outreach coordinators. Again, you'll have the slides so you can better see the numbers and how they correspond to what county. They can help you with any Scholar Track questions you have or overall questions about the program. We also have our financial aid support center. You can email them at scholars@che.in.gov. We also have a helpline, 1-888-528-4719. And then feel free to email me if you have follow-up questions too. That's bcollins@che.in.gov. And we're more than happy to help, as well as our AmeriCorps programs where we have members deployed in various capacities throughout the state who can also help answer your 21st Century Scholars questions. Again, those numbers are there for your reference later as you look through the PowerPoint. And we also have support in Spanish if you are in need of that. So we want to make sure that we highlight that as well. And then you can find all of our resources on our learnmoreindiana.org page. And we also, through this site, have a short, quick link to get you to the Scholar Track system whenever you need it. And then we have loads of ways to interact on social media. So something we want to call out, we actually have an Instagram Live that's up that walks you step by step through each Scholar Success Program activity and how you go about completing that. So there's additional resources. We do Facebook Live events, and we have some coming up about the Scholar Success Program and enrolling in the program as a whole that you can check those out too. So definitely connect with us in a variety of ways. But just know that we're here to help along with our institutional partners to really, again, maximize this experience for you and make sure that you're prepared to walk into your own college journey. Right. That's all I have, Jim.
Thank you so much, Brittany.
Thanks, Vince.
I appreciate this. If you look at this opportunity, going back to what Emily said, going back to what Phil said, Indiana University has a great package for you. You have your 21st Century Scholarship, which covers tuition. You have the Covenant according to your financial need that covers a lot of your costs. If you again, financial need, it's according to financial need, if you qualify. That is one of the best combos in the state. I would argue you can't beat that package in the state. So that's one of the things I really wanted to hammer home. Another thing that I'd like to briefly mention, which before I kick it to our students to answer a few questions, is that when the world opens up again, your scholarship, your 21st Century Scholarship from the state, your Covenant, if you choose to study abroad through an Indiana University program, all of those funds are applied as if you were still here on the IU campus. So again, I know that's giving you a long range view from where you are now, but I always like to plug that because one of the things that I like to say, if you do it right, we can literally offer you the world. Cheesy, huh? But true. So the next thing I'd like to do is introduce our students that are here. Well, I'll have them introduce themselves because I don't want to steal their thunder. They're very, very talented and very experienced young lady. And without further ado, Dakota, will you kick us off?
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Dakota Swamula. I'm originally from Elkhart, Indiana, and I just graduated with a double major in management and marketing from IU Bloomington's Kelley School of Business. So, and I graduated without debt thanks to the 21st Century Scholarship and all the financial aid offered to me. So that's really great.
Hi, my name is Olivia Doctor. I'm a senior at Indiana University Bloomington, and I'm studying psychology and criminal justice. I'm from a small town called North Manchester, right outside of Fort Wayne. And right now I'm on track to graduate without any debt.
So the question that I would like to ask both of you is, when you looked at the presentation and we talked about the moneysmart tools that are available, what recommendations would you have for students considering further education, and what can they do now?
Yeah, I think one of the things that you can do now is to start getting involved in high school. Like Emily said, like they look at like all the things you do, and even doing different pieces of involvement can help you find different scholarships as well. And then also like things like this, I said this in one of the first sessions, but like coming to information sessions like this, like help you get on track, and they help you get all the knowledge that you can, because that will help you make informed decisions that can even have IU pay you to come to college someday.
Yeah, so I agree with everything Dakota said, but one thing I would like to say is you really need to know yourself when you're making these assessments. Don't lie to yourself and say like, oh, I'll only eat out once a week. Like, yeah, I can do that. If you know yourself and you need to go to Taco Bell 2 times a week, like make a budget for that. Know yourself, be honest with yourself. But also know that you're going to make mistakes with things like that. It's not going to be perfect right away.
So while I'm asking them a few questions, please feel free to post your own questions to ask them so that they can answer your questions, as well as my colleagues. If you have any questions of these students, please feel free to ask them your questions as well. The next question that I would pose is, how have you taken advantage of, Dakota, you talked about the other scholarships that you were able to accumulate. Could you give an example of how your expenses, going back to Phil's presentation, how were your expenses pretty much covered by the scholarships that you received, and how much out-of-pocket expense do you truly think you had?
Yeah, so it was a little different every year. So I used to see a question from Brianna in the chat. She said, can you get multiple scholarships at a time? Absolutely. So I am a 21st Century Scholar, which covers my full tuition. I received a Provost Merit-based scholarship that qualified me for 4 years. And then with that, I also had grants from the federal government because of my estimated family contribution was so low, and I had that need-based. And then I also, my freshman year, I came in with a couple different scholarships from my local like hometown scholarship fund, Dollars for Scholars. And then I also used the scholarship system that Emily talked about. And I got a scholarship this last year, which helped me as well. And so all of these things combined, they changed over the years. And the decisions that I made, especially this last year and like where I lived, how often I went out with my friends, the types of places I shopped, I started shopping at Aldi versus Walmart because, it saved me a lot of money. And all these different kind of things combined, I actually didn't have, if I look at it in a holistic view for this entire year, my apartment, my tuition, my food, all that kind of stuff, it kind of like balanced out between my scholarships that I got and then as well as my part-time jobs that I had.
Yeah, so I think I've taken a lot of advantage of everything 21st and IU Bloomington has to offer in particular. So thank you, Mr. Eisen, for mentioning the study abroad. I did study abroad. I went to Barcelona in Spain, and it was completely paid for by OVP DEMA, which is what IU 21st is under. And so I was able to have that incredible experience and live in a place that was actually more expensive than where I'm living here in Bloomington, but still able to finance it and not have to worry about, how am I going to make this work? And so I was able to learn a lot from that without having to have anything hinder me in my experiences.
So Dakota talked about involvement. Could you share your involvement and how does involvement play at the collegiate level, and also the abundance of meals that are associated with that involvement?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the best times of the year is like when you come back to campus. We were talking about Welcome Week earlier. Welcome Week has so much fun stuff, as well as like different events. You can meet all the different student organizations. They always have call-out meetings. You never go hungry. Like every night of the week, you can go somewhere on campus and find like free pizza or cookies. And I think the schools do a good job like providing you food throughout the year as well, like with special events, especially during finals week. But there are so many opportunities, and one thing I think that Mr. Eisen was referring to was one that the 21st Century Scholars Program has. It's our leadership core group. I was the past president this last year, and Olivia is going to be our future president next year. And really, it's a great organization where you can meet other scholars and have a community, as well as use it to reach out and build your volunteer experience and network with the Bloomington community. And then as well as learn how to network and build your professional brand and your development that way as well.
So one of the many great things about IU Bloomington is it has hundreds of clubs. So I believe there's even like a club that just eats cheese. Like they have everything out there for no matter what you want to do. They have a club for like Quidditch, from Harry Potter, everything. And it's just a way to like connect with people and make friends. Every welcome week that they have for incoming freshmen I go to, because you can get free food. I get free water bottles, bags, all the swag they hand out. I go every year and get stuff. Yeah, you get to make those connections in these clubs, and sometimes it's just a friend connection. Sometimes it's something that leads you to get an internship or, find a job. It's just something that you can really take advantage of, not only in like a professional way, but also just, get out there, meet new people, experience new things.
We just had a very important question. Is the food available at IU better than the food that they have in the cafeterias in their high school?
Definitely. There are just so many options here, especially at IU Bloomington. There are probably like 10 different dining halls essentially, but there's also different like cafes. There's one that has a buffet in it. I know one that like you can order steak and you get like steak for your dinner. And like there's just so many options, which is just great. I love it.
Yeah, the freshman 15 is real. That's all I'm going to say.
So one of the things that I would add to that is not only is there your traditional dinner locations, we also have on campus a few coffee houses where you can go in, get your coffee, grab and go breakfast, muffin or what have you. We also have ice cream places. We have the Chocolate Mousse, which is like a Dairy Queen. We also have our own smoothie. I forget what the smoothie places are called in the food courts, but smoothies, if you want smoothies. So yes, the options are many, varied, and the hours that they're available are plenty. So again, between the programs, and I urge you to attend programs when you come to whatever institution you go to, because that pads your meal points. You only have a finite number of meal points and you want to pad those. We have, okay, Brittany asked, how about the benefits of working in internships as a student?
So internships are really great. I've had 2 in the summers between my sophomore and junior, and then junior and senior year. My last one was actually in Bloomington, so I was able to continue it like throughout the school year as a part-time job, and they really helped me gain experience and really build my resume. So when I go into like an interview, I can say, yeah, I've managed $85,000 in Google advertising budgets, you know, and it's just like you get so much information and learning there, and then you can also get involved on campus in so many different ways. And so I encourage you to make those connections with professors and your teaching assistants and learn about how they got their positions, because it could just as easily be you in that position the next year.
So I've actually worked on campus it'll be 4 years next year. And the pay for IU Bloomington is very competitive. And I did work mostly out of need, but also because you do get to gain that experience, and it's something you can put in your resume that makes you stand out to other applicants. I also have a current internship with the police department here that's helping me get into law school. So hopefully I can continue my education and hopefully become a defense lawyer. We'll see what happens, but it's just a great way to make connections, gain experience, be responsible and an adult, which is weird for me still, and I'm 21, still figuring it out.
2 follow-up questions. Dakota, could you share a bit about Ascend? And Olivia, if you could share about the Cadet program.
Yeah, so Ascend Indiana is a nonprofit organization that partners with schools and then companies in Indiana. It makes connections between students and employers to help fill the need of jobs. And so with Ascend and the 21st Century Scholars Program and IU in general, like there's a partnership there. And so you'll be assigned an Ascend mentor who will help you and like guide you. And they have opportunities not only in your field, like not only in one field of study, like your career services office might have. So like for me, it was like a way to step out of like the Kelly Career Services Office and find like opportunities in Indiana that were outside of just like that business oriented focus, and maybe expand the opportunities that I had there. And having like that mentor that helps you and like says, like they basically are a way for you to say like, hey, this is where I'm going, it's my progress, and they'll give you feedback and like push you opportunities that your way that might fit you, and really help you find that connection where you might not have been able to do it yourself because you don't have the personal connection that they provide for you.
Okay, so the IU Cadet programs, it's nationally known. It's the only one in the United States, and it's through IUPD, Indiana University Police Department, and it lets IU students go through the police academy in Bloomington, and they are fully certified Indiana law enforcement officers. And what it does is it works to increase community policing with our students on campus. In many different ways besides policing, you learn about public safety in every aspect you can even imagine on a college campus. It allows a lot of opportunities for things besides law enforcement too. It gives you experience with just working with people, which is, in my opinion, is every job you're ever going to work is going to include having to communicate with others and working with your community.
Thank you. So in the present time, we talk about being advocates for change. If you look at Olivia, this is an advocate for change under the current circumstances to create a voice for the underrepresented. We have other students that are also in the Cadet program. So if you are interested again in not necessarily being an officer, if you're interested in being an officer, that's great. But like Olivia, that's not her plan. Her plan is law school. So there's many things that you can get involved in to make a difference and make a difference in the community in ways that you may not have considered at this point in your academic career. So do we have any other questions of our students? So the question that I always ask last is words of wisdom according to what you heard for the parents that are on the line. We talked towards the student, but now let's focus on the parent. What are 3 points? I'm going to give you 3 points to give parents in relationship to where they are now and to the future, looking towards the future as to where you are. Give you a couple minutes to consider, and then just unmute when you're ready.
Okay, so I'm obviously not a parent, so my advice is gonna be a little biased, but a lot of my experience with coming into college was on me because I am first generation. So if you're having a lot of problems with like the whole scary college process, I get it. I had to do it on my own. So it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be overwhelmed. I definitely was. I had those nights where I just wanted to rip my hair out. Just ask questions if you have them. Everyone has been so helpful, and they understand that you're going to have questions, that things are going to come up, and they're there for you. People are really there for you. My second piece of advice is, this is scary for your kid too. I know this is like, it's a big step for everybody. So maybe if you can just let them know that you understand that this is scary for them also, and that you're there to support them, it says a lot. It really does. Even if you can't help them with like financial needs, like I'm completely financially independent, there's other ways to support your student. Emotional support is honestly one of the most important things you can give somebody, and it's something that my family gives me that I cannot thank them enough for. And then my third piece of advice, when your kid does come home from college, make them some home cooked food. Like, we miss that stuff so much. Mashed potatoes right now, my grandma makes the best mashed potatoes. I'll leave you on that. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so that was kind of hard to follow up, but I think one thing that my family always did for me was they were realistic about what they could and couldn't provide to me. So don't ever try and hide your finances from your children. Like, if something is realistic and possible, like let them know, and like let them know how much you can support them and how much you can't. And then also another point is like, get them involved in your finances. Don't like let them come to college and never have known like what a budget looks like, or you know what your financial situation looks like. I know from my family, like I was super involved with my parents, and like I remember like sitting down like with my mom, and like she had a budget in Excel. Like I watched her like figure out our monthly, yearly budget kind of thing, which was super cool, and it helped me have that like mindset of like my finances, and you know, this is what I have, how much can I spend and how much should I save. And then my third point is kind of like Olivia, like support your kids and like let them know you're there for them, even if you can't be there financially for them. And like don't ever stop encouraging them, and just try and support them in whatever way that you can, whether that's emotionally, by making connections for them, just by supporting them and pushing them to do what you think they can do, but they may have doubts about. And I can't tell you how many times my mom has told me like, you can do this, or like, I've always known like you could do that, or things like that, that it's just like, to me, I didn't know I could do it until I actually did it. And she was like, yeah, I knew all along that you would be able to do that, and you did it amazingly. So.
Thank you, Dakota and Olivia. I appreciate you being a part of this, and I appreciate your professional contributions to this effort. Now, transitioning to our professionals, we have great professionals here, so I don't want the opportunity to be lost to be able to ask them the questions that you may have. You have Britney representing the state, Emily representing our scholarships office, and you have Phil that's the wraparound. How do we budget and create good habits as we pursue our lives? So, who has a question?
Vince, I want to chime in as folks kind of formulate those. Definitely wanted to piggyback off of Dakota and Olivia's awesome feedback. I can't tell you how many parents come up to me at events in the past that were so grateful that they took advantage of opportunities like these pre-college programs throughout the state, as well as 21st Century Scholars. So for parents on the line, I commend you for being here. And I encourage you to keep pushing your student to do these things, because as they're scared, they're probably less likely to on their own. So go ahead and continue with those nudges. And another piece that I would call you to do is bring other families with you. Have them bring their friends to these things, because that's how you really create that maximum impact. So try not to hold this information. Definitely share the recording with others after this is over, because that's our overall goal. How can we get this in front of as many families who need this as possible?
Brittany, I agree with you. And the one other piece that I would share with anyone, I think when we do these presentations, we are all so excited, and we know we get to say this stuff over and over again. If this is the first time you as a student or a parent or family have heard this, we realize it can be a lot. And so what I always tell, going back to my point, IU is a big place. You now have 2 students and multiple staff one-on-one right here that you have our contact information. Jim and his team are going to follow up. And so anything that you have questions about today, please keep in touch with us. I don't know if the students, if Olivia and Dakota, if you agree, but sometimes one of the biggest hurdles in succeeding in college is being courageous enough and strong enough to ask for the help. And that's in all facets of college, whether it's with your personal well-being, your mental health, paying the bills, to your faculty member. We are here. You just have to ask if we can't tell that maybe things aren't going well, or you're confused, or you just don't know and you have questions. So please keep in touch with any or all of us.
And then, and on my end, I guess a couple pieces of, financial guidance to help you all, especially with parents. First off, Olivia and Dakota knocked it out of the park with sort of the recommendations on the financial piece. Like having those financial conversations with your kids, like that is the most important thing you can do. I'm the son of a financial advisor, and we really didn't have those conversations, which is sort of a weird thing. It's really helpful. It's helpful to know what the family can afford, and it's helpful to know so that the students don't feel stressed necessarily that they might be overreaching in terms of their financial decision making while they're in school. But a couple of things that the parents can do, if your family's able to. This is not saying like, yeah, you should be doing this. But if since we're all from the state of Indiana here, like if you're familiar with the state's 529 plan, which is the college savings plan, holy cow, if you have any money you're able to put towards it, you should do that. What the state's 529 plan is, and I'll type the link into the chat box here in a few minutes, but basically it provides a 20% tax credit for any contributions made towards paying for college in a given year. So if you said like, hey, guess what, we have an extra $500, because you were able to put in, if I could do math, that would be great. But let's just say you put an extra $50 per month into a 529 account. You get 20% back on that, on your taxes the following year. So if you put $500 total in a savings account, it's you get an extra $100 the following year back on your taxes. So basically you get $600 for the price of $500, or $1,200 for the price of $1,000, or heck, it's $120 for the price of $100. Like basically, if you're looking for a free way to get a little bit of extra money for college, that is a great way of doing it. And also what the research shows is that families that have 529 accounts, or just college savings plans in general, their kids are more likely to go to college. They're more likely to graduate from college. They're more likely to graduate with less debt. Like everything you could possibly want is a phenomenal thing. So I highly encourage you to check that out. And then the other thing that I'll throw out there, it's sort of counter to I think what a lot of us would probably think. But I want to make sure that we throw this out here if it gets to this point. Like student loans are not bad. There's a lot, there's a lot of narrative out there that's talking about all these people that are graduating with excessive amounts of student loan debt. And those are definitely things that are happening. And we don't want to discount that at all, because those are serious financial situations. But if it means taking out a little bit more in student loans to have your kid finish their degree, you do that. Because graduating with debt is much better than not graduating with debt. And we see that every single day. And those are the people that are, in a tough situation because they have debt, but they don't have the degree to finish it up. So we want to make sure that you understand that if you have to take out a little bit more in student loans in order to make it happen, that's totally fine. And if you look at the debt statistics of Indiana University, it's less than the national average, because IU has put in so many good programs to help make that happen. And the other thing that I would do too is, as you're navigating these financial conversations about paying for college, make sure you're also being a little bit selfish on your end. We've seen families that have sacrificed their retirements. We've seen families that have done a lot of things that have hurt their long term, just to prevent their students from taking out some student loans. And it's a family decision to do those types of things, but we want to make sure that you're being mindful of your own financial situation and making sure you're taking care of yourselves in this process as well. And part of the benefit of the student loan program is to prevent families from having to dig into their retirement accounts to make that kind of thing happen. So just be mindful of all those things, and some may be relevant to you, some may not, but those are things we always want to throw out to parents just as part of that conversation.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you to all that presented, Emily, Brittany, Phil, and thank you, Dakota, Olivia, and everybody that's here listening and asking your questions. As Emily and Brittany and Phil has stated, we're all here for you. So at any time, reach out and contact us with any of your questions. Thank you for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.